Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a review for you of this little guy. This is the Casio AE1200-WHD-1A. The D1A part means that it's on the bracelet and looks vaguely metalish, so there you go. One interesting factoid about this watch before we go in is that it is based on a Seiko watch out of the James Bond film Octopussy. That model was the Seiko G757-5020 Sports 100. I'll try and insert a picture of it right over here. Do some movie magic. The thing is, though, that watch, the Seiko version, is not available at all anymore. Seiko made it for a brief period of time and hasn't made it since. And so I gather that Casio set out to make a watch which is pretty similar to the Seiko in order to scratch the itch for the James Bond fans. And this, in turn, has led to this watch being referred to as the Casio Royale, on the basis of Casino Royale, a James Bond. Oh man, and I love that name. So you know what? I am going to use the crap out of that name during the course of this review. So there we go. Let's do a little size comparison with your Casio Royale here. First off, we have the Casio F108, which is a watch that is about half the price of it, but is also half the classy. But you can see it's got similar features in some ways, although this is more advanced, obviously. Right here is your Casio, whoa there, F91W watch. This guy is worn by James Bond. This one is worn by terrorists. So, interesting juxtaposition there. Here is another James Bond watch. This is the Omega Seamaster Professional 300. Although Bond wore it in blue. Right here is an Omega Aquaterra Seamaster in quartz, and right here is another Casio with a lot of weird functionality. This is the Casio ProTrek PRW3000. So there you go. Also on a bracelet, although bracelet's a little nicer. So, yeah, there you go. Let's go on ahead and jump into the good, the great, the bad, and the ugly of your Casio Royale here. Okay, so on the good side, first off, this has a very nice set of kind of geek chic feelings to it, which I appreciate very much. I mean, you can see here with the world map, with this little analog chunk, this is very sort of techy. It's not going to work for everybody. Some people are going to freaking hate it, but at the same time, you know what? I think it looks kind of cool. And yeah, so that's kind of nice. They've really embraced that aesthetic and run with it, and I think it looks pretty nice. So there you go. Next thing, the size on this guy is right where I want to see it. I have relatively small wrists here, but the thing is, this works pretty well for me. It's not too huge on my wrist, but it's also not freaking tiny either. Very small watches like the Casio F91W can kind of really get lost on a wrist the size of mine. And bigger watches can start to get awkward, but I think this is in a nice intermediate place where it's going to look fine on a smaller wrist, and it's going to look just fine on a much bigger wrist too. So there you go. The size is nice. Next thing, this is an illuminated watch, in case you can't tell by the obnoxious illuminator text. And so I'll show that off here. If you press this little button, it turns on the illuminator, nice little amber color, and it illuminates the whole thing, although practically speaking, this part down here is all you really need to read on a regular basis. And it stays on for just a second after you do it, so nice, can't argue with that. This is a quartz watch, in case you haven't noticed by the digital readout and all those analog features, or digital features, but the accuracy is incredible even for a quartz watch. This guy is running less than 0.1 seconds per day fast over the course of my timing trial here, which is pretty excellent. Can't argue whatsoever with that. Next thing, right here, this little text, WR 100 meters. That means this is 100 meters water resistant. Solid case back, by the way. But anyways, that is a beautiful thing, because it means you don't have to worry about water. You can go swimming in this if you want to, go in the hot tub. I mean, this is not going to be the greatest dive watch ever, and if you go below 300 meters, you're probably dead anyways. But still, this is a just fine sort of watch in terms of not even thinking twice about water. You wear it in the shower, no freaking problem. It works out just fine. So there you go. I love very much having that degree of water resistance in an everyday carry watch, because it just means you don't care anymore. So, beautiful. Next thing, the bracelet on it is a very nice thing, honestly. I am kind of a bracelet snob, and look, I mean, technical construction-wise, it's not the prettiest thing ever. Can see here it's folded and multi-part, but the thing is it actually wears pretty reasonably, and you've got a lot of good adjustment to it. You've got, for instance, 4 different quick adjustment holes here, which is very nice, and is a lot more than can be said for some very expensive bracelets by some very expensive brands. Don't get me freaking started there. It's also very easy to remove the links on this guy. To remove a link, all you need to do, and I'm not going to do it right now, but you just need to go take a little tool and press it down into this little area right here, scoot out this little link here, and then pull it the rest of the way out, and then so forth and so forth. It's pretty straightforward to do. You can't really argue with the process of removing links on this, and it's way more convenient than a lot of pin and collar systems or other forms of modern torture. So that's good, and frankly, it's better than bracelets I've had on much more expensive watches. I had a Seiko Potty Diver recently that was just freaking terrible in terms of bracelet. This guy was A-okay. And so the bracelet here is surprisingly good on a $30 watch, I'll say that. Next thing, there is a lot of functionality going on here. As you can see up here, this has 5 different alarms. Epic Snuggle Bunny, another knife reviewer, saw this on Instagram and said, "No, I'm sorry, if it doesn't have at least 6 alarms, I'm walking away." And highlighting the ridiculous of 5 different alarms. But the thing is, it can be kind of nice because you can set these alarms to ring just once or to ring every single day. And so if you've got to take a medication 5 different times a day, this is a decent way to track that. Or if you've got, work, I don't know. I can see the utility of having more than one alarm. In the day when you're carrying a cell phone that can have an infinite number of alarms, means a little less anymore, but it is still nice. The timer is also there. You can do actually I should show you the alarms. So last night I set one for demo at 10:10, but you can then scroll through and find a bunch of other alarms here, etc. The timer is, you can set it to any arbitrary time interval, great for time and tea, things like that. If you go one step further, you've got yourself a stopwatch here. You can see here it's running in sub-seconds up here, seconds, minutes, hours, etc. Great, can't argue with that. Works fine. How do you clear it? There you go. And so that's good. It's got on the home screen, so to speak, it's got a day function as well as a date function. So it is April 13th right now, and that's a Thursday. That's always nice. I find the day and the date to both be helpful because it's easy to get temporally discombobulated, at least if you're me, so that helps. And so there are a lot of little functions in here that are a beautiful thing, and we'll talk about the biggest function, the GMT, in a second here. But I like having all that at the fingertips. Next thing, the battery on this guy is a 10-year long battery. This means that under ideal conditions, you don't really have to worry about that. I can't test that, mind you. It's not been 10 years since I've owned this watch. But still, if that's real, that's excellent. You need to change the battery on this guy less often than you need to service your Rolex. And, very few, even high-end quartz pieces, have a battery that long. So there you go. That's nice. And then finally, on the good side, this doesn't exude cheap watch in the sense that some other relatively inexpensive watches do. This thing looks like a cheap watch. It's a fine watch. There's a lot of good here, but it looks cheap. This guy doesn't look so cheap. It looks like somebody could plausibly be wearing this for reasons other than budget. And so I appreciate that very much. It's not pricey, but it's not a lump of black plastic either. So to me at least, that's the good on this guy. It doesn't look cheap. It's got a 10-year battery. It's got a lot of different functionality with alarms, timers, stopwatches, date. The bracelet on it is surprisingly good. It's got the full 100 meters of water resistance. It's very accurate, very nice illumination. The size is where I want to see it, and it's got this geek chic thing to it that's going to work very nicely for some people. Let's talk about what's great here. For me, what's great about this watch is actually the multiple time zones. If I hit this search button from the home screen, you can see that it's now moved me to the second time zone, which I've got set to be UTC. Which is really helpful if you're looking at, for instance, server logs in UTC. And then I've got it set to Athens here because I've got collaborators down in South Africa that I occasionally need to talk to. So it's nice to be able to, if I'm trying to, send an email and thinking, okay, is that jackass going to get this before tomorrow? I can look. Oh, no, it's closed. And you can set up to 4 different time zones. And this is very nice. You can change your local time when you arrive on the ground someplace, but then have home be your first thing. So if you want to figure out what time it is at home, oh, there it is. Or you can leave home as I don't know. But either way, there aren't a lot of good quartz watches with a solid GMT function. That's something that is fairly common in mechanical watches, but is weirdly absent in quartz. And so I like seeing it here, and it's often nice if you're dealing with world traveling. One other thing is that you've got a geographic representation that I'm going to try and show you here. When I hit this button, UTC is hard to see, but watch. When I move to the Athens time zone, you can see the swath of the world that that time zone covers is now highlighted over here, or at least dark lighted, I suppose. And when I move back to NYC time, or Eastern time zone, you can see the part of the world that that covers. Look, is it necessary? Absolutely not. I know where New York City is. I know where Athens is. I know where Joburg is. But you know what? It's a freaking okay. And it's kind of a neat little thing. So to me, at least, that's what's great, is the fact that you've got all these time zones close at hand. And, it does so in a reasonably sane way. Let's talk about what's bad here. So on the bad side, first, some nitpicks. There is no solar charging on this, though with a 10-year battery, I don't have a big problem with that. No issue there. Next thing is that it doesn't have radio control, meaning it's not getting a radio time signal from the atomic clock, which means this can drift out of accuracy. That said, this is accurate enough that, again, I don't really care, and it's a $30 watch, no complaints there. Design-wise, I do have some nitpicks here. For instance, I really dislike the amount of text here and up here, and frankly, there's a lot of text on this dial that just doesn't need to be there whatsoever. It seems really ugly to me. Similarly, the fake rivets over here are not exactly riveting to me. Okay, either way. And then finally, I gotta say, I'm gonna see if I can zoom in on this. This world map is vaguely hilarious in its representation. Asia has kind of gotten smushed a little bit over there. South America has got some interesting stuff going down, in Argentina. I think this is maybe post-global warming world map or something like that. Maybe too real there. But either way, overall, it's an interesting take on geography. Let's just leave it at that. But nonetheless, so the world map is not super accurate, but I can live with that. Moving into more substantial issues here, the interface on this guy is not great. Very often I found myself not quite sure what button I need to hit next in order to do what I need to do here. A little bit weird. Not a big deal, though. Next thing is that it is very easy to switch time zone as you are using the watch and just wearing it particularly. Because this button right here switches your time zone. And so if you put your hand in your pocket and hit this button, next thing you know, you're in Athens. Usually it's okay because, well, you have a pretty good sense what time it is. If I look down and my watch says 5:54, I know that that's not accurate. It's not even lunchtime yet. Come on, guys. But still, that can be a little bit confusing if you look down and find yourself in Athens. Next thing, the bracelet does have some rattles to it 100%. Some of them are easy to fix. I used a little bit of this kind of blue tack here. To tack this guy, all you need to do is put a little bit here, and that kind of prevents this guy from rattling around so much in there, the area that captures the pin for the bracelet. That was a quick fix, but it definitely did help. And the bracelet itself is a little Morocco-ful. Not the end of the world, but it is something you're going to keep in mind. Next thing, the alarm on this guy, or all 5 of them, are not super loud. I mean, they're okay, but you can definitely hear them on your wrist in a moderately noisy room. But for instance, if it's in the other room, you're not going to hear it. Or maybe if you're on a loud factory floor, definitely not going to hear it. So there you go. Next thing, this little thing up here. This little bar area, gesture using this guy, is really underutilized. What this does is it shows if you've got an alarm set up, or if you're running the stopwatch, a timer, etc. That's all that this is doing. Yet it feels pretty underutilized. I feel like the DST marker, for instance, should probably be living up there for legibility. That would be nice, and it would give something to live up here. Frankly, the fact that they display DST at all is a little weird to me, but whatever. I'm not a huge fan of having that be largely wasted space most of the time. This little guy up here is an analog/digital clock, so you can see the second hand is kind of circling around this on the outside here. You can see that the hour hand is here with the one shorter bar, and then the minute hand is over here where you've got the 2 bars connected. That is not easy to read. I mean, you can do it, but you really need to focus down on there. This is really best thought of as being a fashion accessory rather than something that you're actually going to be useful. I think it's mostly there to mimic the James Bond watch, which had a much more readable hour-minute hand, but I just don't No, that doesn't bring me that much joy. Then the final issue here is that the face of the watch itself is entirely plastic, a polymer, or whatever they want to call it. And this will absolutely scratch up like nobody's freaking business. As you're wearing this watch, it will scratch. And in fact, I don't know if you're going to be able to see this, but there were a couple of micro scratches on it already. The thing is, though, there were lots of polishes that work on this. There's a compound I use called Polywatch, which if you rub a little bit on there with a nice cloth, will remove a lot of that scratching anyways. Beautiful thing. And so there's a mixed bag there. It scratches really easily, but it's very easy to fix. Would I like to see mineral or sapphire? Absolutely. At 30 bucks, am I freaking out? No, not so much. So to me, that is the bad. The watch face itself is plastic, a crystal that is. The analog digital clock is kind of a joke. This fourth display doesn't do a whole lot to us. The alarm isn't very loud. The bracelet is a little maraca at times. It's very easy to switch time zones accidentally. The interface is not always intuitive and great. I've got some design nitpicks. World time, Illuminator. No radio control, no solar charging, but it's the 30 freaking buck watch. So there you go. Let's talk about the ugly here, because there are two ugly issues here. So on the ugly side, first off, the case to this watch is not actually metal. It looks like it on the surface, and the bracelet certainly is, but this is a resin plastic polymer sort of an affair here, and it's just been painted with a metallic paint. This means that if you whack into this with a doorknob or something like that, it might chip off some of that paint, or it'll dent much more readily than something that is, say, actually a stainless steel will dent. And that's not very great. And in fact, a lot of people have felt deceived by that. Because you look at the watch and it looks metal overall, but then you get it and you realize, wait a second, that's just plastic. So don't be deceived. This is a plastic watch with a metal bracelet, not the other way around. The other ugly thing is that this watch is ugly as sin to some people. My fiancée is a wonderful woman and is very, very tolerant of my wearing different watches and carrying different knives for review. But she is, I gather, very, very eager for me to film this review and sell this watch. This design to her is horribly ugly. I don't mind it so much, but it's kind of a geek chic thing. But let's just say that this design left her shaken, not stirred. Get it? James Bond reference? So, okay, that's the ugly, is that this is going to be ugly as sin to some people, and that the case on this watch is plastic rather than metal. Let's talk final conclusions here. Look, final conclusions, this is in a lot of ways a very, very nice watch. I like a lot of what's going on here. You've got a lot of functionality, you've got some durability, some accuracy, you got a decent bracelet, you've got decent waterproofing, you got nice complications, and a design that is very appealing to some people, although certainly not to others. And Casio is able to give this to us at a very compelling price, which is 30 bucks at the time of filming. And Casio has this habit of making these really inexpensive but super functional watches along the lines of the F91W or the F108 here. These are both really incredible watches, or actually all three of them are, when you consider that price point. Is this watch for everybody? No, absolutely not. This is probably not going to kick the omega off your wrist if you're already moved into another Bond watch. But the thing is, it is absolutely an excellent budget watch choice. You're getting reliable, waterproof, accurate, and a neat way to tell the time. You're getting something that looks good enough to be an actual watch for this price, unlike something like this that's really, it may not say the right things to the right people, so to speak. And you're getting something that is so geeky that it's cool, at least in that Roger Moore sense of cool. I don't know how everyone reacts there, and I know my fiancé sure does. So, I mean, that's kind of where I land on this. This is a very nice watch at a very nice price. I don't quite know that I'm going to be able to call it a gem, but you know what? It's very, very close to that line. So, there you go. If you find it ugly, you can back her right up and go home. But if you're thinking of stopping by the Casio Royale, you absolutely should roll the dice here. Huh? You might even bond with it. Okay, I should stop. I hope this was interesting, that you had a good time, and that you have yourselves an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.